history is about to be made because you are tuned in to the first episode of NFL Mike's Corner, my newest podcast I'll be bringing to the NFL Mike channel weekly. I did a show like this a few years ago, NFL Mike's Corner. I call it the exact same thing. It was in my old apartment. We've come a long way. Now we got a whole office space and room for me to host this podcast from weekly. I'm excited to bring it back. I've always wanted to bring it back since back then, but you guys know how locked in and focused I am on the short form content, on getting you guys those TikToks daily. Fortunately, I've gotten some help and I've gotten some more time to just kind of spot up on Tuesdays. Every Tuesday, I'll be bringing a new episode. It's probably going to drop super late at night, maybe early Wednesday morning each week at the latest. I want to kind of feel it out here these first couple of weeks, and I will let you guys know the official schedule when I have kind of been through it a few times. It's dropping late Wednesday night this week because week 2 just concluded, and I was at Monday Night Football in San Francisco, had to travel back here to LA where I could record this podcast, where today we're going to be talking about the week 2 recap with my friend, or week 1 recap, I should say. Week 2. I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm so excited for week 2 already. We're going to be giving a week 1 full recap with my friend Tony Tucker from the MJT Football Podcast. I'm going to be bringing guests on the show regularly, y'all. So stay tuned for that. I want to bring in guests of opposing teams, like before they play each other. So last week I would have brought maybe like an Eagles and a Packers fan on, or maybe a 49ers and a Jets fan on. And I'll be in the middle and we'll just have a conversation about the game. It'll be a ton of fun. And I'm going to fill this podcast with fun segments like that and random segments. You're not even going to know what's coming each week. But I promise you, I'll recap the previous week. We'll preview the upcoming week as well in this episode towards the end, and I will give you my picks for every game of week 2. The Mike's Pickems Challenge is back this year. If you guys have played with me in previous seasons, it's been a ton of fun, and I can't wait to get this year going as well. Every week, I will drop my picks on this podcast first. So if you want my picks first, make sure you subscribe to the channel with notifications on, and make sure you like the video because it'll help us out a ton in the YouTube algorithm. We're also going to talk specifically about the Chargers and the Raiders. That game was a lot of fun, and the fans and I had a lot of fun going back and forth. So we'll touch on that game specifically on its own. Go over some NFL news, rumors, updates, talk about Joe Burrow's wrist, maybe even Deshaun Watson a little bit if we get time. All coming to you on the first episode of NFL Mike's Corner, starting with some Raiders versus Chargers talk.
Yeah, I mean, I probably... That's a fumble! Get the ball! Get the ball! That's a fumble! Get the ball! Khalil! Let's go! Let's go out of nowhere! There we go! Nice! Let's go, DK! Let's go, baby! Born to be a Charger! All right. He ain't no dicker! He ain't no dicker! Dicker's got a bigger dick and a bigger leg. Put him away, Herb. There we go. Let's go. Guys are breaking out on the field? What is going on? Yeah! That's how you put him home. Send him home. Bye, everybody.
I was at the game, so first of all, I want to commend, but also kind of condemn the Raiders fans because they were talking so much smack going into this. I could feel from the vibe online that it was going to be more rowdy this year, and it was. There was way more fights than any other Raiders-Chargers games I've ever been to, and there was honestly less Raiders fans there than any Chargers-Raiders game than I've ever been to. But I will say, from people that I talked to that were at the game also, and myself included, there was a fight that broke out right next to me. I'm even in the video that's going viral, like just trying to get out of the way and make sure that I'm safe and my family is safe and my friends are safe around me, and we could just let it happen and back off, because that's what you should do if there's ever a fight at a football game. You should disengage. Even if you're in the fight, you should try to de-escalate, leave the situation. It is life or death. There's no reason to fight in the grandstands. Every single fight in the grandstands could end with someone in a coma. There's concrete everywhere. There's sharp edges. There's bleachers. If you get knocked out in SoFi Stadium, you are guaranteed to hit your head on something when you go down. And that is just not safe, y'all. There is no way it is ever worth it. No matter what the argument was, if the guy called your mama a hoe, just give him the middle finger and walk away. That's all you need to do. You do not need to go any further than that. Raiders, Chargers, and any fan of any team anywhere across the country. So I do want to condemn them for that. And that's messed up. And I honestly think that the fight on the field incited a lot of fights in the crowd. I'm not blaming any individual players or anything like that, but just the happenings and the timing and the fact that everyone was so hot in SoFi Stadium that day, just the temperature wise, everything was raised up. Everything felt like it was escalated. It felt like there was more tension than ever before in a Raiders-Chargers game that can still be lighthearted and fun typically when the Raiders fans fill the stadium. But this year, I will say it was like 60-40, less so than 99-1 like I've seen in previous years with Raiders to Chargers fans. And maybe that also is a reason that there was a bit more fights and it was a bit more rowdy. But overall, I will say that people said that the Raiders fans weren't too bad, other than those few that kind of ruined the image for everybody, which I agree with, man. I'm good friends with a lot of Raiders fans. I'm almost friends with every Raiders content creator, Raiders fans that you guys probably know. So it's not even like I hate you guys personally as people, as human beings, and I want to fight you or kill you or hurt you or assault you or do anything like that. It's not like that at all. Not even 1%. It's just all about football. I like to talk trash. I'm a corny, goofy, silly dude. So my style of smack talk probably gets under a lot of y'all's skin. But yeah, that's it for the fan base. I want to applaud those who are cool, handled their alcohol, handled their drinking, tried to stay cool in there. It was a bad day to be drinking. It was 100 degrees in SoFi Stadium. A bravo to you guys. I've gotten a lot of compliments from fans, the Chargers fans that were there, saying that the Raiders fans were actually not that bad compared to what you're seeing on Twitter and what you're seeing on YouTube and in the media. So I do want to say that. As far as the game itself goes, there's a couple things that I really like to see in this game from my Chargers personally as a Chargers fan. The biggest one, the one that stood out the most, was the halftime adjustments. The Chargers started slow in this game, as a lot of teams did in week one. So it's not like the Chargers came out and smacked the Raiders. I know they won by 2 touchdowns. You guys saw the score, the final score at the end. Most of that was done in the second half. Most of that was done in the fourth quarter. And it was halftime adjustments by Jim Harbaugh. The Chargers couldn't get anything going in the passing game, so they just started getting Ladd McConkey some more one-on-ones. They started getting Josh Palmer going. They got Quentin Johnson going on some drags, so they could get something going in the passing game. And then Harbaugh saw something and just changed up the rushing attack just slightly, got J.K. Dobbins in there more so than Gus Edwards, and it provided the spark the Chargers needed. Dobbins very patient, looking like Lev Bell out there, bouncing in and out of holes, broke off a few big runs, and all it took was a few Minshew mistakes for the Chargers to run away with this game. So halftime adjustment, something that Chargers fans aren't used to. Brandon Staley always would get beat in the second half. Mike McCoy always get beat in the second half. Anthony Lynn always get beat in the second half. The Chargers are known for blowing leads because of these halftime adjustment issues. We don't have to talk about all the leads that we've blown. You guys remind me plenty, and I'm sure the Raiders fans will continue to remind me, even after this loss, how the Chargers have been throughout their history. So I will say that Raiders fans' narratives around this game that I'm seeing online, at least, is interesting, because most Raiders fans are basically blaming this loss on either Gardner Minshew or they're blaming this loss on Coach Antonio Pierce, which is someone that they have backed almost religiously this offseason. I've been trying to tell Raiders fans, you shouldn't have crazy expectations for this team, this roster, with this coach. I think that this is a team that has a roster that could be coached up, that could be coached to 10 wins, that could be led, because there is talent in these important spots like edge rusher and pass rush in general. There is talent in these important spots like receiver. I think Zeus is very talented, not as talented as J.K. Dobbins, but I think he is a very talented back. I think he's more of a power back than the Raiders fans want to admit, and Alexander Madison is going to have to be a lot more involved. We saw him make the Raiders like big play of the day, hurdling Asante Samuel Jr. up the sideline. So I think for the Raiders fans, blaming Antonio Pierce, blaming Minshew, it's interesting because all of us other fans have been telling them that Gardner Minshew and Antonio Pierce weren't going to be great together and a great duo. And I think even Raiders fans will admit that Aiden O'Connell makes sense to be the starter of this team. Maybe Aiden O'Connell isn't better at quarterback than Gardner Minshew. There's a chance that he isn't. There's a chance that Antonio Pierce is right. Gardner Minshew is slightly better than AOC, but why not find out what the kid can do with, a full season, a start from week one? If it goes off the rails, you always have Minshew to fall back on, a guy that has come in out of a backup role and provided sparks for teams, honestly, in the past, multiple times. So that's kind of like, I thought his role here, bringing him in, was to back up AOC, find out if AOC is the guy for the Raiders or not. The Raiders can look at the draft next year. The Raiders can look at free agency next year. And Gardner Minshew can kind of just coast them to a 500 record that is right there in the wild card picture or so. But after this game, I don't feel that way anymore. I don't think they're going to be a 500 team if Minshew stays in there for too long, because Minshew looks scared out there. And this Raiders O-line is not an O-line that's going to give him a clean pocket week in, week out, like the Indianapolis Colts O-line last year. And I know a lot of people think that the Colts O-line is a super injury-prone O-line and they stink, but it's a good O-line. It's not bad. It's not elite. It is a very good offensive line. We saw what Anthony Richardson did against the Texans in a loss this last week. He had time to throw the ball. He had time to move around, navigate the pocket. Jonathan Taylor had space to work with. It showed. Not the same with the Raiders versus this Chargers front seven, which I think is the strength of the Chargers team and why I was so confident. And I had a 35-10 score prediction, ended up being 22-10 in this game, was because of the Chargers front seven's ability to dominate and get after Gardner Minshew and pass rush and slow down the rushing attack if coached properly. That's exactly what we saw. And I'm glad it all came to fruition for me. Sorry, Raiders fans, y'all lost. And now you got the Ravens next week, so you're basically 0-2 already. At this point, y'all are weak at some of the most important parts of the team. Offensive line, tackle specifically. Colton Miller can't stand. Colton Miller can't get in the way even from Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa in this game. You guys pop on the All-22 tape, fan of any team, honestly, and watch this game with an unbiased perspective. Joey Bosa was freaking phenomenal. I wish this guy could be healthy his whole career, because this is his potential right here. This is his ceiling. This is what he can be. He could be one of the best game wreckers in the NFL, and we saw it all in this game. Unstoppable stuff, guys. You got to go watch it. It was very impressive. Khalil Mack was amazing as well. And then at the quarterback position, we already just talked about it, and I have my doubts in Antonio Pierce. The Raiders defense was good. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't perfect. The Chargers should have scored 30 in this game. They had a drop touchdown that cost them that, and a few other drives that stalled out because of stupid false start penalties. Stuff like that. And you could say it was the crowd noise. You could say whatever it was. It's stuff that they're not going to deal with or have problems, I don't think, next week in Carolina against the Panthers. But Raiders fans, let me know what you guys think in the chat. I'll see you guys week 18. We'll ramp up the shit talk again when that time comes. I'll actually be rooting for the Raiders to beat the Chiefs. Broncos-Raiders game. I kind of just want the Raiders streak to continue because I think it's funny. And it gives me lots to post about. Lots of stuff to post, but I love posting about streaks. So the Broncos losing for a decade straight to the Raiders is funny to me. So I'll be rooting for you guys against the Broncos too. Don't think that I don't root for the Raiders in those two games. Now the rest of the league, I want the Raiders to go 2-16 or whatever and be picking Travis Hunter next year, I guess. Maybe that'll come back to bite me in the ass if that actually happens. We're going to move on here to the week one recap that I did with my friend Tony Tucker. But first, Raiders, Chargers fans, after we just talked about the game, I got to tell you about my brand new clothing line and merch that we launched. And it's not just for Raiders and Chargers fans. We have all of the teams on fifthdown.shop right now. You can see the shirts overlaid on the screen, hopefully right now, if editor Mike got time to put them on there. But if not, definitely go and check them out, y'all. We have designs for every team either already posted or on the way. I designed these myself, so please support y'all if you like the t-shirts. The Thorbert shirt is awesome. The Hardbolt hats and shirts, they're very cool. The Condor shirt's even cool, and I'm not even a Raiders fan. I like the Al Davis character with like the torch behind him because I like NFL history. I like Al Davis, even though he was a Raider for his whole life and basically the creator of the Raiders. A lot of you guys don't know, but I was actually in the Navy, and Al Davis has a lot of links to Navy football from way back in the day. I'm an NFL historian, so I obsess about stuff like this. But yeah, definitely check out fifthdown.shop, which I'm launching with my friend Tony Tucker, who's about to be on the show right now to help me recap week one in its entirety. We're going to talk about every game of week 1. Right now, I'm joined by Tony Tucker, my good friend, co-host over on the MJT Football podcast. Everyone go subscribe to MJT Football. The link is in the description. We talk weekly about the NFL with our other friend, Joe Morley, who's a Raiders fan, and we're both Chargers fans, so it's a ton of fun. And Tony, I appreciate you for coming on the show, and I wanted to reward you for coming on the show and being my first guest here on NFL Mike's Corner by opening our segment talking about the Chargers Raiders. So I'll let you take this whatever direction you want to take it, because I got a lot of shit to talk.
It feels so great as a fan, right? Because we don't have a ton of control over, we have actually zero control. Maybe, I don't know, I haven't figured it out. 2% control. We can show up to the game, we can cheer, we can lose our voices, which I did. And it was a ton of fun week 1 to be able to go into the stadium, watch your team go out there, and when you go in the offseason and you say we're trying to figure out an identity, we're trying to build a bully, and you go out there and you're like, oh shit, this bully's going to be fully grown by midseason. And it was just so much fun. It's such an electric environment to be there, because the rivalry between the fans is just as great as it is on the field with the players. The contested trash talk, you can also see that in the play. So I left the game feeling great about the Chargers, like where they're at now, where they can be, and eventually where they're going to go.
100% agree with you. And talk about the fans versus the fans thing, just to get it out of the way here very early on, because we're trying to talk about the games, guys. I talk plenty of shit on social media already. We don't need to continue the shit talk here as much, but I will say, shout out to the Raiders fans that were respectful in the stadium. There was a lot of fights. There was this time. And it sucked to see that. But I've talked to multiple Chargers fans. Tony, actually, on my plane ride home from San Francisco last night, sat next to a Chargers fan, and they're all telling me that the Raiders fans were actually pretty cool around them. And it just seems like there's a select few, and there's a small demographic of this fan base that ruins it for everyone. So I just want to say, bravo to the Raiders fans. Bravo to the Raiders content creators. It was cool to hang out with y'all at the tailgate. If you guys ever see this, or if Raiders fans are watching this. But y'all lost, and that was very exciting to see. And y'all talked all that trash about 63 points. So I'm going to be talking my smack this week on social media. And for my Chargers, it was just exciting to see, Tony, that this team can make halftime adjustments now. That's my biggest thing that I took from this game. The Chargers offense struggled in the first half. It's no secret. They could not get anything going in the passing game down the field at all. So it was exciting to see them go into the locker room struggling in a week 1 game and come out with some adjustments that improved the offensive production, that improved the rushing attack, that gave J.K. Dobbins a few big holes to break off some big runs and ultimately win this game with those big runs. It was exciting to see that. We've never seen that from the Chargers from their previous coaches. Anthony Lynn wasn't really great at going into halftime and coming out with a great plan, and neither was Brendan Staley. Neither was Mike McCoy, if you want to go even back further. So that's just something I'm not used to on the offensive side of the ball. And also on the offensive side of the ball, I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I think the Chargers could have scored 35 points if things aren't as sloppy in this game. If they don't make a mistake here, if they don't drop a pass here, Herbert missed a few reads here, there. Like, if it goes better, if the Chargers improve a ton from week 1 to week 2 against the Panthers next week, I'm expecting a lot more out of the offense. And like you're saying, by mid, what is this bully going to become? Speaking of which, the defense absolutely bullied them, Tony. And when you go back and look at it, even the offense did too. But more so, this defense came out and made a statement. Scored 63 last year. You're scoring 10 in week 1 to start your season with your new quarterback, your new offensive coordinator, your new shiny generational weapon coming out of slot receiver, tight end, and H-back, whatever the hell he's playing, and you get shut down. That's beautiful. And that's what exactly I expected when I was giving my takes, calling this a blowout, that this Chargers team is not just going to be settled with beating the Raiders. They want to beat the crap out of the Raiders.
Yeah, so we're in a situation where it's like you get to see at halftime it's not just offensively, right? It's defensively. So it's the whole team, because a lot of times you'll see adjustments being made. I thought that there was a little bit more aggression in the second half from some of the play calls on the defensive side. But on the offensive side, you saw the offensive line get it together, cleaning up some of the bad penalties that they had in the first half for false starts, illegal motion, those types of things. Like Will Dissly had a rough first drive or two in the game and then was able to fix it. But you get first round pick, comes out, balls, check. Second round pick, second half, gets out there, balls, check. Third round pick, Junior Colson, out there on the field, making plays, rotating the green dot scenario, great. Free agent acquisitions all over the place, making plays. Like everything was there and coming together. Like Puna Ford has an amazing game right there. Denzel Perryman, amazing game on defense. So it was really exciting as a fan to get to sit there and watch a team that has talked so much shit in our chat about 63 points that they scored and the defensive dominance against what is the third string quarterback now for the Chargers. And we love you, Easton Stick. You seem like a great person, great teammate, but not really something to brag about. Like I don't understand why you're boasting so hard about this one thing, because then when the games come back to relevance and really mattering, what happens? You score your one touchdown on a missed tackle, on like a broken bad tackle. That like Zont went low. You can't do that with nobody behind you. You got to try and get the guy out of bounds when he's on the sideline. So yeah, all
I'm just so happy. A lot of narratives got killed in this game. 63 points, that's gone. Thank goodness. Buried. They're still going to bring it up, but there's no merit to it anymore to even talk about it. The narrative of the Chargers fans not showing up, I feel like if I looked at that stadium, it was more split. You look to the right side on the Charger sideline, lots of baby blue and yellow in the crowd. You look to the left side on the Raider sideline, lots of Raider fans on that side. If I give them 60-40, 65-35, that's fair too. But when I went to my first Raiders versus Chargers game in SoFi Stadium, it was 99-1. It was 90-10. Like it wasn't even fair. I felt scared in my section for my first Chargers game because the Chargers won and I was very hyped about it. And I'm in the middle of a section with not a single other Chargers fan. There's video proof. There's no Chargers fan in my section. You saw, Tony, there were Chargers fans next to us, in front of us, behind us, walking around, yelling bolts up, checking out our shirts, high-fiving. Like, Chargers fans are Jews for Jim Harbaugh. I think that narrative's dead about the Chargers not having any fans as well. I think it's only going to get better as they win more and more and more games going into next week. But let's move on here. That's enough. We're trying to get to all the games. You guys want us to talk just Chargers and Raiders? Go to any of my pages. I'm definitely talking about the Raiders. I'll tell you that much. Next game here, Thursday Night Football. We touched on it on our Friday show on MJT, so we can just briefly talk about it, Tony, for listeners who didn't catch that. But Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. I'm calling it a knocking off the rust Thursday night game. Both quarterbacks played really well. Both quarterbacks made some big mistakes. Lamar missed a few big throws that ultimately probably lost the Ravens the game. You can't miss those kind of throws. You can't miss touchdown opportunities versus the Kansas City Chiefs. It's just not going to work out down the stretch of the football game. And I want to say, speaking of the Raiders, and I can't get them out of my head because they live rent-free in there, Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews are actually the best tight end duo in the NFL. Isaiah Likely absolutely balled out. They didn't even need Mark Andrews. And I know Mark Andrews is going to be involved. I know Mark Andrews is still going to be a beast for the Ravens. No, they're not trading him. No, he's not going anywhere. All this rumors and all this crap, it's just crap. They want both tight ends. Trust me. But I was impressed by the Ravens offense. I was impressed by the Ravens defense. They just ran into the Chiefs and made too many mistakes.
Yeah, it's another case where it's like you have to play perfect football to beat the Chiefs, especially in a game that you know that they're really up for, they're prepared for. Everybody's mentally fully engaged, locked in. It's watching that game, like I didn't even really think that the Ravens are close to where the Chiefs are, even though the game was close, right? Like we saw a lot of the issues. It's like you start 3 new offensive linemen on the team. You have to work in Derrick Henry. You know, you're trying to figure out how that balance works. Lamar Jackson was very aggressive. He was playing in a situation where it was like do or die. kind of like how we would have liked to have seen him play in the AFC Championship game, the amount of running and stuff that he was doing. But then this week I saw a report that by Wednesday he was still so sore he couldn't even practice. So that's not really a sustainable way to play. Mahomes, them getting out there, debuting the Xavier Worthy thing is just an awful nightmare for anybody, who's a fan of the NFL, that they can add that even without Hollywood Brown. I thought the defense was really nice, even though you lose L'Jarius Sneed. I thought that Watson stepped up, had some good moments out there. So it's the same old Chiefs. I think it will eventually be the same old Ravens. I still think this Ravens team is, 10, 11 wins pretty handedly, pretty easily, I should say, for them. So
I think so too, especially seeing, it's week 1, but seeing the Bengals and Browns struggle that much, I like the Ravens right now in both those matchups early on in the season based off this first game, even with the Ravens taking an L also. It's painful. I hate it because going into the season every year, there's just something for the Chiefs. Like, it's a secondary. There should be some weakness there. Or it's the left tackle position. We should have something there, something we can expose. And they just put it together. And that's the magic of Andy Reid. That's the magic of having a great quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. That's the magic of just having it all functioning at the highest level maybe in NFL history. But it's annoying. Very annoying because the left tackle looked fine. They didn't seem like they had very many issues with protection. And even when they did, Mahomes was able to navigate it. And then the secondary, like you said, played very well.
So I'll just give a couple players that stood out to me real quick on both sides. The new tackle they drafted, I'm going to butcher his name. That's why I'm stuttering a bit. Kingsley Suamataia, I believe. And then on the defensive side for the Ravens, there was, the loss of Patrick Queen. What's that going to look like? I think his name is Trent Simpson, the linebacker, Clemson, I believe.
Yes.
Had some really nice plays in the game. So I think those are positive signs for both of those football teams and the fan bases.
Yeah, very good game to start our season, y'all. Came down to the last play. Very exciting. One toe on the line to finish it. Obviously, everyone saw it. So hopefully that's signs for what's going to come. And I think this game also gave us some excitement. Unfortunately, Jordan Love went down at the end of it, and he's going to be out for a few weeks. Let's talk about this Eagles-Packers game. One thing I have noted here, the Brazil crowd was rocking. There was a lot of talk. There's a lot of narratives that this Brazil venue was not somewhere the NFL should have played or not. They shouldn't have went there. Even players complaining about it because some of the rumors that they were hearing. From what I saw, it looked awesome. Looked like an awesome environment. I wish the field wasn't so slippery. But, hey, you're going in and you're setting up a whole NFL game in some random stadium in Brazil. Can't get it perfect. The crowd itself looked like it was a lot of fun. It looked like a soccer crowd, which is exciting for the NFL to get in the stands there. And the next thing I have noted down here, Tony, is NFL Mike's a genius, right? Go ahead. You can go ahead and say it,
Go ahead, just break your arm right there.
But tell me what you thought about Saquon Barkley, Tony, behind this offensive line and how crazy this could be as far as his all-purpose stats at the end of this.
So I don't even want to get into it. People saw that. I want to take it in a different direction. Can you imagine what it's like to be the owner of the Giants? And he actually said on Hard Knocks, man, are you sure we can't get a deal done? Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to sleep. I'm not going to be able to live with myself if he signs with the Eagles. So not only does he sign with the Eagles, he leaves the organization. He has 3 touchdowns on opening night and looks unstoppable. The reception in there. I just imagine this guy like taking his hat off and like stomping on it in his like super plush, office 70 stories up in some high rise in New York, just being like, why did I trust Joe Shane and Brian Daboll to make a coherent decision? And then flash forward to a game we'll talk about later. Then he's got to sit in the owner's box and watch what he has left.
Yeah.
And it's like, ooh, it was a really, really tough to watch. Like if you were a Giants fan, that probably was really tough. Watch.
I enjoyed it a lot. You know what a grandstander I am for Saquon Barkley. I can't wait to get a Saquon Barkley shirt on our 5th Down shop eventually because that thing's getting sent to my house immediately. I've been saying it for years that there's 2 running backs that I would pay, and he's one of them. And sure enough, he gets paid. I think you pair him up with that offensive line, it's worth it to pay that position if he's going to take you to this next level. Some of these big plays that he broke off, that's that next step above DeAndre Swift. That's that next thing that's going to mask some of the issues we saw from Jalen Hurts, which we can talk about as well. That's that next thing that I think that brings to this offense. And the Eagles need to do their best to keep their defense off the field too. That was also a little bit of an eyesore in this game, which we can get into. So shout out to Saquon Barkley. I had him as my RB1 or 2 with Bijan this year. I got him at 8th in the Vegas league. That was all a joke, guys. I wasn't that mad about the Bijan thing. It was all fake. I really am happy to have Saquon Barkley on my team. Just keep those ankles taped. Let's keep those quads healthy, Saquon. Over to the Packers side just for a second, Tony, and we'll go back to Jalen Hurts, and we'll talk about this secondary really quick before we move on to the next game. Jaden Reed was amazing in this, and I think he established himself as their top wide receiver, right?
For me, I think it's just going to be one of those things that rotates when Jordan Love is healthy, right? And LaFleur said this in the offseason. It's like, where is the game plan? What's the opportunity for them to exploit? Because a team's going to get the film, and then they're going to start to try and place maybe some coverage or, rolling certain players in a way that will be tougher for Jaden Reed to have that success every week. And then it's like, okay, now we're pivoting to Romeo Doubs. Wicks had a bit of a brutal game. I just think that having what the Packers have always had, going back to even when I was a kid, they've always had 2-3 guys at a time that can play. Even on those Devontae Adams teams, like even before Adams, when he gets there, it's the end of Driver. I believe he was there, but Jennings and Nelson and Adams, right? And then Adams is there with the next generation of Lazard and Scantling. We're, still making plays for that team. So Jaden Reed's outstanding. He's one of those players we talked about the Chargers getting. It's like, hey, we need to add some speed. We need a dynamic guy to be added to the offense. A couple, I think it was last year's draft. And so it's like, you see what he can do. He went even earlier than all of the projections. I think he ended up going to like the 2nd round, 3rd round or whatever, and he was projected 4th or 5th. So I watched him play a few times. Michigan State, was always impressed.
His ability to get open on his first route without needing to get the play extended, without needing Jordan Love to make any moves or anything. He's getting wide open on just post routes, corners. He's getting wide open on drags and going deep over. Like, he understands spacing and zone coverages. You can tell this kid's gonna have a great career if he stays healthy in Green Bay. And then Jordan Love. How do you feel Jordan Love played in this game? I honestly wasn't a big fan, even though the Packers did put up a lot of points. I think that this Philly secondary was giving Jordan Love some easy completions, and any time that they made it hard, Love to me didn't look that great. He looked a little trigger happy.
So I text you guys this, like the off platform, the jump throws, those things are exciting. But you can't live like that in the NFL. Yeah. And there was just a lot more of that not feet set where he's kind of fading back or jumping when he's throwing. You can't get the right snip. Yeah.
He's hesitating just a little. Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit of that, but it's the first, it was the first week of the season, and then it ends with an unfortunate injury for him. But at the same time, like, there's a bit of good luck in there because it wasn't season ending. It doesn't sound like it's going to be something that's going to shelf him for the entire season. So hopefully he gets back, gets healthy. They can bridge the gap with, Malik Willis and some creative play calling by LaFleur, who I think is always one of those guys that we leave out when we talk about the best, offensive minds, in the NFL. So it'll be interesting. I was always a little skeptical of like, hey, we're paying somebody, we're making him the highest paid quarterback on 8 games. That's just not enough for me to give somebody that kind of money. Like, me personally, I would have worked out some other way. I would have been like, what can we do to not make you guys?
Can we do that number? Let's get you out there on the field for 2 years instead. Let's just do something that gives us some time before we just push all the chips in on him. Now, obviously, Jordan Love is out. And that's all, we can talk about whether Jordan Love's worth the money, later on in the season when we really know. He's going to miss 3 to 4 weeks, I think. Hopefully he gets back out there. I think the Packers are a good enough team to be able to survive this if they can win one of these games without him and he can get back out there and they can string some wins together, especially in division games. But we will see how that unfolds and how this affects him. Knee injury in week 1. Not great for the Packers season. Let's run through some of these really quickly, some of these blowouts, Tony. Tampa Bay, Washington. I want to play a Baker Mayfield game with you, but is there any notes that you want to just say real quick about this game?
Not really. I think that actually, yeah. Let me get into this. Jaden Daniels. It's a rookie quarterback situation where it's like we need to give these guys time. Like I've seen a couple of comments on where people aren't happy or like I knew he wasn't going to be this or that or whatever. I think all these rookies, let's just give them 5-6 weeks before you start having these crazy wild opinions on. For me, I like to be more into year 2. So
me too. That's what I was about to say.
Number 2 is when you watch the Browns, can anybody not tell me that the Browns would be Super Bowl level contender if they had just stuck it out with Baker Mayfield, which is insane. And the third thing, the player that stood out to me in this game was Bucky Irving. I really thought that he was nice running in between the tackles, outside in the screen game. I forgot to write notes, but I think there was 1 or 2 good plays of pass protection from him in there too. So I really like the fact that now that this team could have sustainable running game between Rachaad White, Bucky Irving, and then I thought Sean Tucker played really nice in the preseason too as he moves into his second year. I think they've got some real depth at that position, and we saw Liam Cohen delivered on what he said about Chris Godwin, that he was going to be a player in this offense, and he had a really nice week 1. And then Mike Evans is just a future Hall of Famer. Anybody who touts this is you need to knock that shit off.
I looked at the stat line. I was like, we're at the Charger game. I was like, oh, Mike Evans got a 60-yarder. There it is. There it is. Every week he's going to break one off. He's going to burn somebody. He's going to moss somebody. Something awesome is going to happen out wide with number 13. That's exciting to see. And I'm with you on the Baker Mayfield stuff. I don't know if they would be as good still with Baker Mayfield. I think the fact that he was able to get out of there and kind of free up his mind, his mental, and go back to that kind of not carefree football, but go back to that passion-based Baker Mayfield football. And I think Tampa Bay has done a great job of unleashing this guy a little bit. He's a gunslinger, and we try to make him play within the scheme. He just isn't quite like that top talent. He ain't the most accurate guy on every single pass. He doesn't always make the perfect read, but he's an absolute gamer that just loves the game. He's fun to watch. So let him loose with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and these guys. Get him out of that play action scheme that he was in with Nick Chubb and Amari Cooper just running slants and posts all game long, and get him in here where he can do some Baker Mayfield stuff that we saw his rookie year and mostly in college. Tony, here's the game. Baker Mayfield or Deshaun Watson? Just pick one.
Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield or Jared Goff?
Oh, that's really close. I'm probably going to take Jared Goff, though.
I think I would take Mayfield very, very slightly. Mayfield or Carr? Mayfield. Mayfield or Young? Bryce Young. I'm going Mayfield.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield or Trevor Lawrence?
Mayfield.
Jordan Love.
Mayfield.
Jalen Hurts.
I'm going to take Jalen Hurts.
Okay. Tua. Kirk.
Mayfield.
So, we're right there where we're talking about Mayfield probably is a top 15 quarterback right now.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about that. And
right?
I always talk about this, and as somebody who's a little bit older, I always remind young people that just to say if you're in the top, whatever it is, that 16 quarterbacks, that's a moving scale. That shit fluctuates from 16 to 10 and from 10 to 6. Really, the only locks we have are those top 2 or 3 guys. For me, it's Mahomes and Allen. They never really slide from that top spot of where they're at. Mahomes definitely never slides from the top for me. But then I could argue there's been moments where Burrow could leapfrog him, stretches. But Mayfield was that guy last year who was in that top 16, sometimes playing like top 10, like a number 10 quarterback or whatever. So yeah, I say definitely he floats around in that area.
I just wanted to get that out there because I don't feel like people are talking about it enough. Baker Mayfield is carving out a great career for himself in Tampa Bay.
Like you're talking to a guy who picked the Browns.
Oh, you, of course. I know. You have been there. I'm talking about the general people, listeners out there who probably just listen to me do that and go, you know what? Mayfield, just like you did.
Baker took, I feel like as fans in the internet and even the big shows, they unfairly judged him because he played through that shoulder injury that year. And that's when he started to take a bad rap. So that's why I believe that if he was still in Cleveland, this Cleveland team would be a serious contender with that defense and those offensive weapons. I think it would be different. I think the maturity still would have happened naturally.
Yeah. They really messed that up. They really messed that up, lost all those picks, paid Watson that contract, and looks like he's robbing them unless there's some kind of sudden, immediate change. It's officially like time to think about this being the worst move in the history of sports. And only the Cleveland Browns would do something like this.
So I was not listening to it, but I saw at the bottom of the herd this morning, I was doing something.
New accusation. You saw that, right? New accusations are coming out on him.
There might be an out in the clause for Cleveland to void some money and get out of it.
Fire that dude.
Again, this is just something I read briefly. I haven't looked into like how much, legitimacy there is to this. But if
everyone's innocent to me until proven guilty or until they pay off 30 people to shut up.
All I'm saying is the part where they can pay to get out of it. Because I think if Cleveland gets a chance, they're going to be like, yep,
especially if they're drafted high, especially if there's a good like free agent market when it happens and they can pull the trigger on that. They should do that, man. The team, like you're saying, the defense especially is amazing. And now they got Jim Schwartz there still, right? He's still the DC there. Like, it's going to be amazing again. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm not thinking because the Browns got blown out by the Cowboys here that this defense is not going to be better. Their offense was that bad in this game. And we can just call that game kind of covered, right? Congrats to the Cowboys fans, by the way. How'd you feel about the Cowboys in this one?
I'll make this one real short and sweet too. Like Zeke, I said, I was like, I don't want to go like full apology tour on the laughing meme. Like we put up that picture of Zeke saying I could still be RB1 or whatever. I saw a little bit of juice. Like I still saw a guy that can play at a high level in the NFL. And especially when he did the hurdle on that first drive, I was like, oh shit, he's still got it. There's still a little Zeke left in there. Defensively, it was good to see Diggs get back out there, get an interception after that. And also the Dak contract. I watched this game and then immediately regretted saying 9-8 Cowboys missed the playoffs. So I was like, well, you're going to regret that prediction, Tony.
I mean, it can still go off the rails. Don't get too excited yet, Tony. Dak was a little bit inaccurate in this game I'm seeing here. I'm looking at the stat line. He was 19 of 32. I didn't see the game, honestly. I saw my stat line, though, on my fantasy team for Micah Parsons, so I assume he played well.
Micah.
That's good to see. So I'm a little bit worried about the team's like outlook from within. I'm worried about internal issues with guys like Micah Parsons and his pride and his ego, going out there and paying, he's basically playing to prove to them, I'm the best edge rusher in the NFL, pay me the most anyone's ever been paid. So we'll see how that unfolds throughout the year. I think Micah is going to be a loose cannon out there. When things go wrong, I think he's going to go, and when things go right, he's just going to freaking try and ball out.
So when he stands next to DeJuan Jones, the guy who was filling in at tackle for their injured player, it looks like a father-son situation, except the son is just whipping his ass. Like he's able to because he's got long arms, he's a big dude, but he's like dipping underneath there. Like he had some good moments in the game. Again, this is all from not watching. I'm not watching the all 22 version. I'm just rewatching the condensed versions of the games. But he looks like he's on a mission for that defensive player of the year.
Oh, Yeah, and that would be great for his contract negotiations next offseason, where the Cowboys are going to be in a spot where they can't play hardball if he's the reigning defensive player of the year on him.
One other quick thing. I thought that Guyton, the tackle that the Cowboys drafted, had some nice reps against Myles Garrett.
Well,
so,
okay, good.
I mean, they continue. Cooper Beebe had some struggles inside with Tomlinson, I believe it is. That's, to be expected. It's tough to play interior in this league and deal with like grown men who are, chasing paychecks. But Guyton, he had a couple of good reps against Myles Garrett, which is one of the toughest assignments in the NFL.
Yeah, and that was a spot where they need some testing because they did do some moving around on that O-line. They did lose some guys that have been there for a very long time. So that's good to hear for the Cowboys O-line. Let's move on here, Tony. Are the Giants the worst team in the NFL? They lost 28-3, I believe, to the Vikings, or maybe it was 28-6. They got a field goal off of a turnover, like a sloppy turnover by the Vikings in territory, and then the offense couldn't do anything the rest of the freaking game. I mean, this is so ugly. And then Sam Darnold kind of like cooked them up too a little bit on defense. So this could be bad for the Giants this year. And we all knew the Giants are going to be a bad football team. But I am looking at this and thinking maybe they're worse than the Patriots. I'm looking at this and thinking that they're like right there with the Panthers, maybe battling for the first overall pick next year.
I wouldn't. I still have all of them in the same bucket: Panthers, Giants, Patriots. They're still all in that 3 to 5 win territory for me. I know there was a big victory for the Patriots, which we'll get to, but I would say this: if you polled the fans what was the best thing about the Giants, they might say the uniforms. And the uniforms have like a 99% disapproval rate. It's like me and Chris Long, because I listen to Greenlight Podcast, he also shouted out the uniforms. I tend to like those throwback uniforms too, but I'm just saying on a whole, like on a poll, most people think those are garbage, and people would probably have picked the uniforms over what we saw the gameplay in there. I thought Dexter Lawrence had some nice rushes from the interior. Best player on that team, I would say. I didn't really tune in to see Brian Burns too much. He didn't really stand out. I thought Malik Neighbors made some nice catches out there, but Daniel Jones, it's bad. And then I was gonna find a quote. Maybe you can punch in with this, later in the edit. I think that there were maybe some Vikings quotes where they said they felt bad for Daniel Jones. Like,
did you see the fans after the game? You saw those fans? Did you see those fans after the game on Twitter?
No.
Daniel Jones was walking out. There's a crowd of Giants fans there. They started booing him. Like, he's in civvies. He's going to his car, or maybe he's going to his ride, whoever's picking him up. And he walks out the stadium. There's a huge crowd of Giants fans waiting there for the players. And they started booing him and yelling at him and calling him Danny Pennies and all this stuff. Giants fans. So it's bad. And I do feel bad for Daniel Jones also, but then at the same time, I don't, because of his big account.
He got a big payday. It's where you're at, right? It's you
pick up your phone, look at your account. Okay, they can call me whatever the fuck they want.
So here's the thing. You know me, I don't like to be overly negative. These they're entertainers, and they have families and lives and feelings and all of that stuff. They did not do this man any favors. I text you and Joe all summer when I was watching the Hard Knocks series the Giants did. I go, they are doing this guy really dirty. And then even into the Bears Hard Knocks, you see the GM scouting Carson Beck in week 0 or whatever it was of the college football season. Like, they were just seemed relentless effort to try and replace this guy, even though the things they were saying were, he's our guy, we're going to roll with him, we believe in him. He's just in a no-win situation unless they actually win 9 or 10 games.
This is just impossible. It's just impossible. And I feel bad for Brian Daboll too. I don't know what they're going to do with that too. Like, Brian Daboll's kind of just in the meat grinder right now, and he's hopefully they hang on to him because I believe in him still. I don't think he's gotten a fair shot as a head coach yet, but it's not the way the NFL works.
But if you look at the Giants, like, they have no sense of like, hey, we got to stick this out. They've been through like Ben McAdoo, Pat
Yeah.
Shurmur, Joe
Yeah.
Judge, like they've
just keep
been
doing it.
running through coaches. It's like if you're not there, so I think Brian Daboll's a good coach, but I don't see why if Bill Belichick's out there and the owner's like, hey, we need to tighten the ship and get shit corrected. See you later. Here you go. And then they tell Bill, we're not going to make you play with Daniel Jones. We're going to go find what veteran have you guys identified that can come in here and steady the ship, and we can win 10 games next year. Because they've got pieces on defense, but if you're a defender, it's kind of like the Browns situation. It's demoralizing to go out there, and that's what's happening to your offense. It's like, we can't score points too. Like, we can only play and do so much defensively. It's an offensive league, but Belichick gives you a little check mark in your corner.
That's like Brian Callahan saying that if the Titans just punted the entire second half on 1st and 10, that they would have won the game, which we could just transition there. Bears pull it out somehow, 24-17. And I'll start here, Tony. I'm just going to skip over that punt comment because they also got a punt blocked for a touchdown, Mr. Callahan. Yeah. I'm just going to throw that out there. And that was a big part of the Bears being able to win this game with almost no success on offense. I mean, they did have some success. There was some things that I want to highlight to be excited about. The Bears fans were booing Caleb Williams by like halftime. They were booing him into the third quarter. Like you were saying about Jane Daniels, we have to give these kids some grace. It's their rookie season. It's their first game of their career. I know Caleb made it look easy in the preseason. That's because in the preseason, it's a lot easier. I know he made it look easy in college because in college, it's a lot easier, but you have to be excited with what you saw from the passing game at least. Wide receivers were consistently all game, even into the fourth quarter, getting wide open. He just was missing throws, just barely not connecting to Darnell, or it wasn't Darnell Mooney. The Darnell Mooney used to wear that number. It's now DeAndre Carter up the sideline. Just barely misses that. Just barely misses Keenan Allen for maybe a touchdown early on in the game. I think Keenan Allen, another touchdown, was dropped by Keenan on the goal line. Like the Bears, in my opinion, when I watched the highlights, when I watched through this game, I pulled up the YouTube video of all of Caleb Williams' snaps. It looked like they should have probably scored 40 points if Caleb Williams wasn't a rookie with zero experience. Also, on top of it all, like they were getting wide open, and Caleb Williams was extending a bunch of time. Like he was giving them what they want. Just inaccurate, probably nervous. I really think that the Bears have a lot of promise seeing this game, even though the offense did not convert into a lot of scoring, didn't convert into a lot of yards. I don't think Caleb surpassed 100 in this one. But, Tony, give your take on the Bears offense. I saw a lot of promise. I would be happy if I was a Bears fan watching this on TV. I understand why the fans are frustrated, but you got the win in a game that you probably shouldn't have won, and you got this first game out of the way.
You got the win, and that's ultimately what's most important just for this season. The Bears fans were very loud about finally getting a quarterback. They finally had a guy, right? You get the win. That's the most important part for this season. So, obviously, they want Caleb to be a lot better than what he was in the game, and I believe that he will be. I still think he's going to be great. The text message that I sent to you guys was there's no timing. Either of these quarterbacks. There's no timing in the offense where it's like, hey, we're easy completions, 3 steps, and we're getting the ball out, and this is where it's going. And I think that we just saw two very inexperienced quarterbacks at this level against 2 really strong defenses. We can't think that, it's the Titans and we don't think they're going to be very good. They still have a lot of good players on the defensive side of this football team. It's not going to be a walk in the park. None of these games are going to be a walk in the park, even if you loaded up the team with all of these weapons. So, I think just managing the expectations early on for what they're going to be. But I still think this Bears team, especially after the injury to the Packers, now has a higher rate of making increase their chances of making the postseason. And as far as the Titans go, it's you've got to get more into that run game. You've got to get more into using the athleticism of Spears and Pollard. figure out how that's going to work, because that's going to aid in the abilities of Will Levis reaching the next level.
Trying to hopefully set this guy up for some success. That was ugly, man. That second half wasn't pro-level football from Will Levis. And there's one highlight in there that might be the worst highlight of the whole week from any quarterback. I don't know. Minshew's ghost throw is competing with that interception that Will Levis threw. That cost him that game pretty much. Along with a punt block, along with a bunch of other things. But, man, the Mayo man looked like the ball was lathered in Mayo this week. Hopefully he can be better in the future. But I'm with you on the whole Caleb Williams thing. I think that fans underestimated a lot. And even with Minshew, even with some of these other quarterbacks that struggled this week, like these guys are used to playing against a pass rush that can't hit them. So when, you get hit early on in the game as Caleb Williams by Jeffrey Simmons or fill in the blank defensive lineman comes in and smacks you, that's going to speed you up in a way that's not necessarily always good. And I feel like, honestly, Tony, all the Raiders fans are blaming Minshew for that game right now. He looked like a scared quarterback out there. That's why I think he was making the mistakes, because what the pass rush was doing early on in that game, very early on, his clock is just like, I only have 3.5 seconds.
Having somebody like Jeffrey Simmons want to just tear through your offensive line and tear you in half, I will say I think that was a little bit of an issue for this game too, was like you've got two guys that are back there behind offensive lines that are still working things out, right? Especially in the pass game. And I do think that both of these offensive lines have promise, but in week one against these defensive lines, like that's going to be advantage defensive line week one. I think both of these teams are going to be competitive, tough outs as the season goes on. Like I think both teams have a lot of talent. And can be well coached at different position groups, and they'll be better off.
Last thing, Rome Odunze news obviously isn't great. He's going to miss a few weeks, but they're deep at that position. So that's the one good thing for the Bears. They loaded up there at receiver. Play Keenan Allen in fantasy, y'all. I'm telling you, he was wide open so many times and it just didn't click. And when it does, he's going to be 8 catches, 110-yard Keenan. Get ready. Let's go on here to Bills Cardinals real quick. We do need to speed up here a lot. So Josh Allen, 4-touchdown game. He did have the fumble. He did have a few of the mistakes that I was calling that was going to keep the Arizona Cardinals close. My pick was obviously for the Cardinals. Didn't come true. I had them just finishing that last thing off, finishing it with that touchdown to win the game. Didn't pull it out, but I saw what I saw out of the Cardinals. A good offense, but their defense is just going to be Swiss cheese this year. So that's going to be something I think is going to happen all year to the Cardinals. And good for fantasy football. Kyler Murray, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., which we could talk about him as well. From the Bills side of things, I think their offense looked like the Bills' offense. The rushing attack was good. Josh Allen was really good, other than the few mistakes here. Keon Coleman didn't have a crazy stat line, but just watching him out there, seeing him playing against other pros, that are starter-level corners, he had a very nice catch. Got to be exciting to see that. I would say buckle up and get ready to see what he does in week 2. I think he could have a big game. And for the Cardinals, one last thing with them, Kyler Murray looks healthy. That's the one great thing to see from the Cardinals. There's one nasty juke move he put on someone in there. He embarrassed a few people, as Kyler can do and will do to any team. Tony, any takeaways from this game? We got to speed up here, but I want to give you a chance to talk about this one.
Keon Coleman, that sideline grab, fantastic. To see the young guy get there and do that. Khalil Shakir is going to he's going to fill what Beasley was for them a couple years ago. He looked nice. I think Kincaid will become slowly a bigger part of this offense. Defensively for the Bills, I saw enough to think that just keep Von Miller healthy, and the D-line's going to be able to generate some pass rush. Like, you have a good defensive coordinator. They were a little shook in the first half, but then after that, 17-3, it was pretty much all Bills for the majority of the game. Couple of tough drops for Kyler out there, but I thought it was one of the most exciting games, and the best quarterback play I saw was out of this game. Kyler was out there balling, using his legs, getting things in the run game, extending plays, making some good throws out there, and then Josh Allen just being that guy. I wish Josh Allen would stop doing the dive at the goal line shit, though. Like,
Yeah, just go out of bounds or get down, man. You don't
that
need to go
touchdown
into
he scored, he flips
Yeah.
in the air and then just comes down awkwardly. It's like you've only got so many of those, and week one just it ain't that week.
He did that a couple years ago against the Rams in week 1 too. I think he flipped into the end zone. So he does that every time he gets to the 1 yard line. He's gonna try and flip into the end zone. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't like that type of stuff, especially when you're Josh Allen and they can just line it up again and just walk it in easily without having to flip into the end zone. So yeah, I'm with you 100%. But you got to be excited as a Bills fan to see what this offense did, and I'm with you. I have a lot of questions about the Bills secondary still, but Kyler Murray is a tough quarterback to stay in coverage on just because of how much he can extend plays. And they did a good job for the most part and closed out the game with a big pass defense where Kyler extended like a 10-second play and threw it down the field. When he got the ball late in the game, I'm thinking like, oh, here we go. Like, don't give Kyler Murray the ball with 2 minutes left because he is the king of miracle, like just crazy shit. Ask the Bills from a few years ago with DeAndre Hopkins on that Hail Mary. Like, Kyler is magical late in the game when it's like, all right, Kyler, we need you to be Superman, bro.
Yeah, I agree.
But let's keep this going here. Another game I wanted to touch on here is the Texans-Colts real quick. I didn't get to check this game out, but some of the highlights I saw from Anthony Richardson, very excited to see because we are both huge Anthony Richardson fans. The preseason game worried me a lot. Some of the stuff I saw last year worried me a lot. Put it away, kind of, for me. Like, I'm excited. I'm back on board. Put the Anthony Richardson backpack on. That throw that he made over those two guys, that was special. That showed the arm strength that this guy has. And when we saw him at the combine hitting the freaking ceiling with the football, he could just do that off his back foot. Texans, close game against their division rival. I think they really just showed that they're one of the best teams in the AFC and that if they're in close games like this, I trust them to win them. And I did pick the Texans to win. I know you did too.
So I wouldn't be so quick to just because they're not going to show it in the highlights, but the same things happened, Mike, with him where it's like the highlights are going to be amazing every week. It's going to be electric to see. But there are some throws, like I think it was 4th and 1 or something. They go for it, and he just whips the ball over the guy's head to the point where like everybody's looking around was like, was there a penalty or like what? It's just a misfire. And there's a couple of times where he just has too much heat on it, and maybe there's a footwork thing or arm. I'm not sure. I'm not a quarterback coach, but like there's still some moments where it's like you're this close, because if this guy gets accuracy and everything, forget about it. Like the Colts are going to be unstoppable if he gets to that level of quarterback play. It's going to be phenomenal. On the Texans side, I am a Michigan fan, so I'm going to preface this with saying CJ Stroud gets away with some of the luckiest almost interceptions, but not interceptions ever. And he did it again in this game. There was a
arm strength, Tony. That's that zip.
But he's a phenomenal quarterback. He just continues to deal out there. Diggs got a lot, so he seemed happy in this game. I thought the pass rush was obviously pretty nice. I thought Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter played well. The guy in the interior, I forget what his name is, but this was another fun game to watch. Like I really enjoyed rewatching this game here. Joe Mixon looked like a great addition to this team too. Like you add a run game, he looked fresh and dynamic.
I really felt this offseason too that he was going to help them a lot in pass protection. He's very good in pass protection, but also just as an outlet for Stroud when things break down a little bit. He didn't really have that last year with Devin Singletary, a guy that's just out in the flat that can make a guy miss and get you 10, 11 yards easy. And Stroud doesn't really have to work for it. So, yeah, excited to see it from what I saw from this game. And maybe I am jumping on the Anthony Richardson train a little bit too quickly. I just saw some plays where he took off, and it's like, man, this is what we're all excited about. I saw that big play, the big pass down the field. They're getting Alec Pierce out there looking like freaking, I don't even know. He looks like a beast, though. I don't know what to compare him to. He's not even the best receiver on the team or even close.
He had like a 70-yard throw in this game that was absolutely insane. And you're like, holy wow. And then you turn back a couple of plays later, and it's like, where was that ball? Like, and those are the type of things where as you start to work it out, he's still young too. He's still in that, like, give him some time.
Game, right? 6 games.
Yeah. We're talking about 6 games of NFL experience. If and when he figures it out, it's going to be magical. It's going to be fun.
Now let's go over to where there was a lot of experience playing in the game. And the side maybe with the most experience probably won, but the Steelers beating the Falcons and what we expected to be a defensive battle. We talked about it on the show. And I had the Falcons just barely beating the Steelers in a defensive battle because I was hoping that those defensive additions would give them enough juice to hold the Steelers offense down, and it did. But the Falcons offense came out and got shut down. TJ Watt is unblockable. They're doubling him. They're tripling him. They're using the running back. They got Kirk Cousins immediately rolling out. There's nothing they can do. He just goes through everyone and just rips the ball out of Kirk Cousins' hands almost every time he gets a chance to. Every time there's a 3rd and 11 or a 3rd and 9, and Kirk has to stand in the pocket and wait for his receivers to run the route. The Falcons' offensive line was not good in this, but who is going to be good against this Steelers pass rush? And then for the Steelers offense, I really feel like they can win 9 or 10 games with Justin Fields if he just runs the ball like that and protects it, and they just kick field goals. 6 field goals in this, Tony. They didn't score a touchdown. Just field goal after field goal after field goal. I think he's really built a great connection with George Pickens, with Russell Wilson being on the sideline at practice, and you could see that on the field as well. I wouldn't put Russell Wilson in.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. There was a lot of jokes being made about Russell Wilson, inactive, but still, you know, fully.
And he wanted to warm up. But usually you take your pads off. Like, he wanted to get out there and move around, see how he feels. But take your pads off after, bro, if you're not active.
Yeah. It was the jokes that I heard were uncomfortable at best. So in this game, you're just seeing a lot of rust with Kirk Cousins, with the offensive line, with the timing, the snap that hits the tight end's leg, and Kirk Cousins is a little off with Drake London. It was really nice to see Kyle Pitts be wide open and actually get the ball thrown to him, which was like, holy shit, that's a breath of fresh air. Defensively, I thought the Falcons looked pretty good, but then again, it's tough to tell against this Steelers offense because we don't really know what it's going to be. Like, how many first-team reps did Justin Fields actually get in preparation for this game? And then it's like, if he did get all the reps, this is what the offense looked like after a full offseason where you got most of the reps and then most of the reps leading into this game, and this is what it could be. Like, of course the Steelers could win 10 games. They did it last year with, like, Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph and Mitch Trubisky or whatever. Like, yes, with Justin Fields, this team could win 10 football games. But the TJ Watt is like, hey, you guys – it messed up not giving me Defensive Player of the Year last year, and I just want you to all understand that I'm that guy. I'm the guy in the NFL right now. Like, that was incredible.
I'd be crazy to say this in week 1, but what will it take for this guy to win an MVP award in his career?
I mean, if they let's say they
25,
let's say they win the AFC North, and he ends up with 23.5 sacks.
Because it feels realistic with him. There's a few guys in here where it feels realistic for an edge rusher to finally do it one year where the quarterbacks just kind of are calm. Like last year, Lamar won the MVP, right? But I feel like there wasn't really a contender as far as quarterbacks. It was pretty calm as far as the MVP race out of that position. If TJ Watt has just one of these monsters years where he has 3 sacks and 2 strip sacks every freaking game,
well,
we've given him the MVP. Like, he literally just almost single-handedly has won multiple games now.
But he does that every year. So what happens with these voters and with the conversation is that they go week by week after about week 11. So Purdy loses the MVP race because he looks bad against the Ravens, and Mahomes has a stinker against the Raiders on Christmas Day, and Dak Prescott goes up to Buffalo and gets his doors blown off. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, who do we have left? Who didn't have the stinker we thought? It's like, well, Lamar's the last one standing. And Lamar was an MVP caliber team. The team won 13 games last year. Also had a phenomenal record-breaking defense. But, like, that's when you start discounting all the stuff that they've done all year to get their teams to these incredible records. Like Tyreek Hill, they have that like slide at the end of the season where they end up losing the division to the Bills. Like Tyreek is in that conversation. You know, like 49ers lose. Christian McCaffrey falls out of the conversation. It's like they just have to look at the body of work, how the teams got there, and then make a decision on who's the MVP.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. And TJ Watt can't even get consideration if the Steelers aren't winning. They aren't winning the division. Like they aren't there with the Ravens. So even though this guy could be an MVP and he's one of the most valuable players in the entire NFL, it's going to be tough. But I've always wanted to see like an edge rusher like Myles Garrett, TJ Watt just have one of those years. So I can just be like, man, we got to see a defensive MVP. I know that you've seen a few, right? J.J. Watt. No, he didn't win MVP, did he? Lawrence Taylor?
I think the only defensive MVP has been Lawrence Taylor.
Lawrence Taylor, so never seen one. Let's make some history. Speaking of the Cheetah being the MVP, he was the MVP of that game. This dude is unbelievable on the other side of the ball of how unstoppable his speed and agility is, even at his age now. And let's talk about the irony for a second here. The incident that happened with Tyreek Hill, I'm going to talk about it on this show, Tony, so we don't need to dive into it. But it's kind of ironic that he had like a speeding incident on the road on the way to 120 yards and an 80-yard touchdown where he just absolutely cooks up this Jaguars defense in a miraculous comeback for the Dolphins. Really quickly, what was your thoughts on this game? I think that the Dolphins were rusty in the first half, and in the second half, we really saw like what this offense can do, and we got what we expected out of them in this one.
My takeaway from this game was is can the Jaguars defense really turn a corner like this? Because if they can, I believe that the Jaguars can figure something out offensively where they can win a few more games than maybe I gave them credit for when we did our projection. Because I took away like the pass rush looked really nice, right? Like Trayvon Walker got home on a play. Josh Hines-Allen looked nice there. Interior, they were getting something out of Armstead. So it's like now the back end, they played pretty well in this. You're going to give up explosives to Miami no matter what. But to hold that team to 20 points, and then some of the decisions that were made in this game, like going for it on your own 30 when you're already putting them in field goal range. I think the score was 17-10 or 16-10 or something like, I forget what it was, 17-10 at that point or 17-13. You can't do that. You can't give them the opportunity to tie the football game like that. Luckily, Saunders misses it. And then it was brutal. There were some bad drops for Lawrence. I thought Lawrence actually played pretty well for the most part. But the Dolphins defense looked good. Jalen Phillips looked better than I thought he would coming off of that injury. Like he looked better.
Yeah, I had that marked down here too. I have it. The pass rush for the Dolphins looks better without Wilkins somehow. So that's good for the Dolphins to see. I think Jalen Ramsey even got a pick in the game, right? Or Jalen Ramsey made a big play. I might be tripping.
Ramsey had a big stop in the game. So big tackle.
I didn't see it for them, man. They need that defense to improve if they want to stand any chance late in the year. It always happens. Like this offense, it's not possible to just play in the cold weather and just air the ball out and expect the same exact production. Like they need the defense to be better late in the year.
One last thing too was at the end of this game, they did something they haven't done in the past. They turned to Jeff Wilson Jr. and they started to run the rock up the middle. Like that's not something they've done in years past. Giving the ball to Ingold and getting some tough yards and really sort of saying, hey, we're not just relying on this. We're also going to be a little physical here when it's necessary at the end of the game to really lean on you guys when you're gassed in this heat, chasing us around for 4 quarters. And now we're just gonna hammer the ball, which was different. We didn't see that a lot from them last year, at least not that I.
That's good to see. That is good to see. Raheem Mostert's already out, but I already had chalked it up as an A-chain Wilson or an A-chain right backfield before the season even started. Unfortunately for Raheem, it's sad to say, but all right. Last few here: Saints, Panthers. We don't really need to talk about this, man. The Panthers are just too young. They're too inexperienced. They're not going to be good this year. They might sneak a win here. They might sneak a win there if they play a team that just has the worst day ever or completely underestimates them. I hope I'm not jinxing anything here. The Panthers suck, Tony. They suck. I don't even know how to feel about the Saints. Rashid Shaheed might be the most underrated receiver in the NFL. That's how I feel about the Saints.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you watch it and it's like, how do you evaluate what you just saw in this game? You know, and I've not seen anything but the highlights in it. I still am not giving up on Bryce Young. I still think that, like, you're going up against a veteran defensive coordinator with a bunch of veterans on defense in a brand new scheme with new parts, you know, new players, new everything on the road. That's a tough opener. So I still think that the Bryce Young there's going to be something here at a certain point where I think that they'll get to that really tough decision-making thing where it's like, shit, we're on the clock with the first, second, or third pick, and we aren't 100% convinced about our quarterback. I still think they're going to end up in that spot no matter what, where Bryce Young is going to make it difficult for them, where he's like, we saw enough. Do we trade out? Do we draft tackle? It's going to be
and the timer on the contract's ticking also. So it's going to be interesting. I'm with you. I think the Panthers are going to be a team that's going to be picking in that range. They're going to have choices to make. It's tough.
Kamara looked good for the Saints too.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. I think that's good for them. They need him. He's a big producer for them. Both just getting him down the field into field goal range and on the other side of the 50 and scoring touchdowns in the red zone. Seahawks, Broncos, really quick too. Bo Nix, first game in the league. And I think from what I saw, the stat lines and everything, it wasn't too bad. I wouldn't be super mad if I was a Broncos fan from this game. Rookie mistakes. The Broncos lost it at the end. The Seahawks are interesting, man. It can be really ugly on some plays offensively for Geno. And then sometimes it's like Ken Walker is just destroying everyone. So I still don't know how to feel about the Seahawks either, just like the Saints.
So that was the last game I watched right before we did the show. And the Seahawks O-line has issues. And then George Fant, who started for them at tackle, goes out. Forsythe comes in. He's getting holding calls and false starts, and he's not looking great. The interior. And then for whatever reason, the offense calls a drop back play after your offensive line has been struggling, and they get a holding call, and you get a call for a safety. Then you have another play where you're like literally on the 1 yard line and you run the ball again. Instead of just running a QB sneak and getting a couple of yards, you get a second safety in that game. Again, Bo Nix struggled in this game. Rookie quarterbacks are going to struggle in this league. He's on the road in Seattle where it's a crazy environment. And you get the ball inside the 20-yard line. I think one of them was at the 20 after the Singleton interception. Then there's a punt. And you get the ball inside like the 12-yard line, and they couldn't get going. They end up settling for field goals there. I will say that I thought I saw the most positive things from Nix. If I had to pick one of the three, there was a couple of bad drops that would have helped him out there. Yeah.
The bonehead one on the goal line, like when you look at those, you just like, unless he's doing it all year long, you can't really take too much stock into it in his first game when you make that bonehead of a rookie mistake. He just threw it into double coverage, got picked off. Yeah.
There's a couple bad decisions like that where he threw late to the sideline into like triple coverage. I
hope he sucks though. I hope he sucks. That's what I hope.
He'll be good. That's what I think. I think his ceiling is good, and that's how
not good for us. It's not good for us if they get a defense going up there. Keep it rolling here. This is the last day game, and then we'll talk about the last two primetime games and get out of here, Tony. We're way over the time limit. I thank you so much for sticking around. Patriots 16, Bengals 10. No, I'm not kidding. Everyone listening, I'm not joking. This is actually the score. The Bengals only scored 10 points against the Patriots, man. Maybe the Patriots defense is just going to continue without a beat from the Bill Belichick to the Gerard Mayo era. But I honestly think that the way the Patriots ran the ball offensively in this, that's what kept the Bengals score so low. And then the Bengals just couldn't get anything going them damn selves late in the game to just squeak this out like the Dolphins did, like the Bears did. They just didn't have it. I'm very worried about Joe Burrow's wrist. He was flexing that thing all game. Like on the sideline, I've seen multiple clips from different parts of the game, with him grabbing his wrist, looking at his wrist. Saw one of him pick up a Gatorade bottle, and it looked like maybe he had some struggles of getting the Gatorade bottle up to drink the Gatorade. Like, I would be very concerned after this game if I was a Bengals fan. And I would be very concerned next week that Pacheco is going to go for like 200 yards because the run defense was so bad.
Yeah. This is another game I haven't watched. And when you sit down to watch the highlights, there's not really many highlights.
They just gave it to Ramondre. They just handed it off all game.
Yeah. So I don't have a ton from this like actual like breakdown of the game. I'll just say this as a bigger picture thing. This is a huge moment for the Patriots. You move on from Bill Belichick. You get a win. You know, like that's big for the fan base, for everything that's going forward. For the Bengals, you just chalk this up again as like, hey, we start slow. Like we're a team that starts in October. The thing that's shitty is like you had Higgins there all offseason. He unfortunately gets an injury game week or whatever it is. Chase, he could have been there, but he's fighting for his money. You got to get paid. I fully understand that. So things are off a little bit there. The one thing I did think would be better was the defense. Now, you could say they only gave up 17 points, but it's 17 points to Jacoby Brissett offense where I just don't know how to take from that. So I may or may not watch this game. I may or may not watch it.
Let me see. Just watch the condensed, or maybe just watch the highlights or something. But I'm gonna look it up right now. The rushing was like it was ridiculous. I don't think Jacoby had 125 yards passing. So Jacoby Brissett had 30 yards rushing. Antonio Gibson had 20 yards rushing, and Ramondre Stevenson had 120 on 25 carries, averaged almost 5 yards per carry in this. Broke off multiple big runs. I love Ramondre Stevenson. I am a huge fan of his. The Patriots have been prone to just not ever get this guy going like this. So maybe this is change for Ramondre, or start worrying about that Bengals rushing defense, which is what I'm worried about. We'll see how they do against the Chiefs. Here it is right here. Because even if they lose in a close game, that can give you something like, okay, we're good. You know, this is still the same Bengals that's going to come back down the stretch of the season. But if they go out there and they can't stop Pacheco and the Chiefs walk all over them.
I think that I probably will watch the game just to see how the Patriots defense played. Was it more of game plan by them? Like, were they able to execute?
Lots of butterball moments. Multiple fumbles, kickoff fumble.
Yeah.
Burrow was inaccurate, and then also he was holding on to the ball forever, standing there in the pocket. And yeah, the O-line was holding up for the most part, and you got to give them some credit for holding up in pass pro, but it's just like you got to get the first read. Like the play design has to work. You can't just hold on to the ball and wait for Jamar Chase to come open. It's not always going to work out that way.
Yeah. So
let's finish this off, Tony. Rams Lions. Just give me really quick your thoughts on this one. I feel like the Rams had about as bad, like not a bad game. They played amazing. They showed why I still think they could be one of the best teams in the league. They're just so injured already, and I'm very worried that it's going to get worse.
Yeah, Rams are my NFC Super Bowl pick because I didn't want to go with the Lions because everybody's taking the Lions. I wanted to try and be different. I don't necessarily – the Rams were tired and got bullied in overtime. That's what happened. We're getting the ball. We just need to score a touchdown. Game's over. And David Montgomery went just lights out. Yeah. He went to work in overtime. And that's what the Lions can do. Like that, just the offensive line is there. In the second half, the way Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp sort of turned the clock back to 2021 or 2022, I think it was, that was so much fun to watch. Like that I think you could do it still. But here's where I worry, Tony. They lost both tackles. So those guys are out now. And you lose Puka, who's the number 2 option in this offense, and maybe like the best number 2 option in the entire NFL last season. So I don't know what to say about that. This defense is obviously very young. Ran into a buzzsaw in the Lions offense, and I feel like they did okay in the game till late. The Lions did a great job at keeping Monty fresh, knowing like if this thing's close at the end, he's going to be ready to take 10 carries on one drive or 8 carries or 6 carries, whatever it was, and put the game away. I'm very worried that
that Stafford is not going to have any time in future matchups here. I don't know who the Rams play next week. Do you? It's not San Fran or anything. Oh, they play the Cardinals. So there you go. They can move the ball on that defense even without Puka Nacua. We'll see how it goes next week. I'm worried that Stafford's going to start getting hit, and that never goes well for Stafford. Cooper Kupp obviously is injury prone as well, and I think if they lose either one of those guys, it's over.
Yeah, I thought the additions of the secondary showed up for the Lions. Carlton Davis, Terrion Arnold.
My Rams defense did pretty solid for what I expected. I expected them to get cooked. So my Rams defense in the NFL, they did okay.
That was a great.
Jameson Williams, by the way, before we move on to the last game, Jameson Williams, let's go, man.
Yep.
Super hyped to see that kid healthy because we've known what his talent is. He was brought in here to be the number one receiver when he was drafted. People forget that. It was not Amon-Ra St. Brown. And now they got both these guys. Hopefully they can stay healthy all year. He already got banged up in the game. We'll see. But he's electric. Don't put him one-on-one. He's going to burn anybody.
Yeah.
All right, Rams, or we just talked about the Rams. Niners, Jets, Tony. I think the biggest thing that I overestimated, I'll admit it, and I'll put the shoe in my mouth now, is and you told me this, I overestimated the Jets O-line's improvements. Like, I thought they're going to be a lot better. I thought they're going to hold up even against this Niners pass rush, but the Niners pass rush is just too freaking good. They stood no chance out there, and it's the same thing with some of these other guys. Week 1, the pass rush is getting home in the first quarter, in your first couple of drives. Aaron Rodgers' timing is messed up for the rest of the game. And Rodgers, man, I'm so glad I got to see him play before it was over. I got to see his first touchdown of his career as a Jet, somehow a year removed from him signing with the Jets. So that's cool also. But, man, these big games, this happens. And he's had the 49ers monkey on his back his whole career, but it's just big games in general. It's just not there. And it's always ugly, too. It's never like he loses close ones. It's like they come out and it's just like, what the hell happened?
I underestimated the 49ers unity. The ability to have Ayuk gone and all those conversations, and Trent Williams comes back the week of the game in there. None of that shit mattered. I mean, they were dealing with the Pearsall situation game week. It's like none of it mattered. They still just went out there and just whipped ass on both sides of the ball. And you look at it, it's like, and then Christian McCaffrey's out before the game. I was like, oh, this is setting up for the Jets to just go out here and make a statement in week 1. And none of it mattered. Just the coaching, offensively, defensively, Jordan Mason, arriving on the scene as like, okay, here we go. We're going to go up the middle. Okay, the box is a little bit. Now we're going to go off tackle, and I'm going to go out there and press the edges, and I'm going to smash you out there too. Like, it was nice to see that young man out there balling. Jennings still just stepping up and making plays. And the 49ers are fantastic. 2 years in a row, I picked them not to win the division. 2 years in a row, I feel like an idiot in week 1.
Yeah, they are. They really are. And the offensive line, watching it, I was in section 418, so I had a bird's eye view. And I was just so impressed watching the holes develop for Mason. This dude on most runs wasn't getting touched for 3 to 5 yards. And then that's when first contact was being made, and he's running people over on top of it because he's running full speed at that point by the time he gets 5 yards upfield. It was very exciting to watch this O-line. I've always gone back and forth, like Eagles best O-line in the league, Niners best O-line in the league. I think with Kelsey gone, this is the best O-line in the league, Tony. This is the best offensive line in all of football. That's why Brock Purdy's so good. That's why Jordan Mason can go in there and look and operate at a higher level than maybe CMC would have in this game if he played injured.
I don't think they would be the best offensive line in the league without Kyle Shanahan's design, style of run. The way that the offense is set up, it allows for them to kind of almost have the advantage at the snap, right? Because so much stuff is under center, you're worried about like rushing too far upfield if it's a run, and then play action, you're not back far enough. He's easy. It's to drop there. So I just think that it's a combination of like, we know what we have. We know how to maximize the ability. It's the same thing with the Chiefs do. All of the great teams have the ability to maximize the talent that they're given.
The goal of this game was accomplished, Tony. I got to watch Aaron Rodgers play football. That was the whole goal. That's why they put the game on. That's why it was there, just so Mike can see Aaron Rodgers play football in person before he retires. Last year, I tell you, man, I had my freaking tickets like queued. Didn't buy them yet. Had everything saved. I was ready to go to New York for that Jets-Chargers game just to see Aaron Rodgers. And, of course, he gets hurt. And then it becomes Zach Wilson and cancel that trip immediately. But it's just got to see it before it was done. I had to go to a Niner game. And, by the way, shout out to Niner fans. I was very surprised by how, like, cool they were. It was fun environment to be in. Didn't feel like it was a Raiders crowd. Like, we weren't seeing fights breaking out like crazy with the Jets fans or anything like that. They were cheering. They have chants, like any team, any fan base does. The stadium was beautiful. Got to see the sunset kind of come down over the stadium, jet flyovers. It was a great trip. I appreciate you guys for listening to us for an hour and 15 minutes. Tony, thank you so much for going like 30 minutes over, man.
Yeah, it's all good. I always have fun hanging out and talking football with you.
All right, let's get back to the show here. But other NFL news that I want to talk about really quick is the Joe Burrow wrist storyline that's going on right now, which is interesting to keep note of because in this game, multiple clips are coming out. Joe Burrow flexing his wrist out, trying to like almost like he's trying to get feeling back to his hand, and that is just not a good sign. This is an injury that can definitely linger, not just this season, but maybe in this guy's entire career. And that is not something that us football fans want to see happen to Joe Burrow. We saw the Bengals struggle against the Patriots this week and got upset. I think that a lot of it has to do mostly with the fact Jamar Chase hasn't been at practice, so that kind of rubbed things the wrong way. And just not having T. Higgins there, who has been there, who has been practicing, who's on a contract year and really is probably working his ass off to prove that he's a wide receiver one in this league this year. Not having him was huge, too, in this game. And their offense just couldn't get going. They just couldn't do it. They couldn't get it going on the ground. That's just scary because they did just lose Joe Mixon, and you wonder if maybe they need him. I don't hate the Bengals. A lot of Chargers fans hate the Bengals. They hate Joe Burrow. I don't at all. I actually like Joe Burrow. I think what he did in college was special and something that we might never see on that scale out of LSU like that again. He might go down as the best LSU quarterback, or at least the best season by an LSU quarterback ever in college football history. So there's no reason for me to root against Joe Burrow other than the Bengals fans hating on Justin Herbert all the time. But I can't really control that. Joe Burrow can't really control that. I want to see Burrow succeed in this offense. It's just going to take T. Higgins to get back out there. It's going to take Jamar Chase to get his feet under him again. And they're playing the Chiefs this week. So it's kind of scary. As far as Joe Burrow's wrist goes, Joe Burrow himself has come out and said that there's no problems with the wrist. Whatever everyone's talking about, this Gatorade bottle incident, don't worry about it. He's completely fine. I don't believe him. I think that there's something going on. Clearly, you're not flexing the wrist. You're not doing all this normally. Something's going on. Something small, at least, is bothering Burrow. But I just don't think that is what's really going to matter. I did see reports, like I was saying, that this could affect him long term and can affect his throwing power, the zip that he has in the ball. But still, I think it's Joe Burrow. He's a gamer. He's fine. It's just the Bengals offense going through so much turbulence right now behind the scenes. It just didn't translate to good football. And they were still in that game. They could have won it still, even with an ugly performance. So I don't think they're going to win this game against the Chiefs either. I think the Bengals are going to start 0-2. They'll slowly get better as T. Higgins gets healthy and out there, and Jamar Chase gets a few games under his belt. We're going to see Jamar Chase just break out one of these weeks for 200 yards. Watch. It's going to be insane. And let's talk about some of these injuries. We do have a lot of injuries already from week one. I'm going to pull them up real quick here, opening the link right now. But you don't want to see it. You don't want to see on mass scale this many injuries. Like the Arizona Cardinals, they lost one of their tackles. The Bills, they lost Teron Johnson, who they need this year with a lot of the guys they lost in the secondary this offseason. David Njoku, high ankle sprain. That's no fun for a football player, man. That can linger all year for sure. No doubt. Dallas Cowboys tight end Jake Ferguson. They thought that he tore his ACL. It was scary because he's a young tight end, about to have a breakout year. But he got lucky. He didn't tear his ACL. He is injured, though, and he's going to be out for weeks. Jeff Okuda's out for the Texans already. Jaguars lost Tyson Campbell, had a great game to a hammy. And it actually, when he came out, the Dolphins started to cook. So that was a big part of that for them. And he was playing well in that game. The Seattle Seahawks, Kenneth Walker had some abdomen pain, but I guess he's fine. So Seahawks fans, no worries there. But that's the injuries. What's the biggest name on here on this list? I'm just reading it down here. I think David Njoku probably is the biggest name on here so far. Marshawn Lattimore, maybe. Those two guys are going to be out for some time, I think. Hamstring and a high ankle sprain specifically is tough on tight ends. All right, let's get into our Pick'ems segment, and I'm going to give you guys my picks for every game of week 2 right now. But first, make sure you join the Pick'ems challenge after the video, or maybe while you're watching the video, you can pull it up on a separate browser. We are going to be giving away an NFL jersey to whoever wins the free Pick'ems challenge, and then we're going to be giving away thousands of dollars to whoever wins the $5 paid Pick'ems challenge. You can pick which one you want. The link is in the description right now. You're going to hear me plug my TikTok plug to go to my pages, which you can go to NFLMike on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter, and you can find the link and you can get to the Mike's Pick'ems challenge there as well. But you can get it in the description right here. I'll make it really easy for y'all. Just go down there, click that link, submit your picks while I give you my picks. It's going to clip in right here at this part of the show. Like I said, guys, this is how it's going to kind of go. I'm going to clip in segments here, and I hope you enjoy it. Please leave comments on what you think. I have a secret for just you gamblers out there. You're hardcore gamblers. Gamble responsibly, of course. If you have a gambling problem, make sure you go to Google and search the number if you have a gambling problem on who to call. I don't want anyone to gamble irresponsibly, but I will tell you guys, if you guys do responsibly gamble and you have fun making your picks each week, putting in your parlays and putting all that in, we have multiple gambling brand deals and DFS Sportsbook promotion and promotion codes that can give you thousands of dollars to start your NFL season off with. You can have like a little folder on your phone with all the apps and just go one by one all year long and play off of just my promotional money. It's going to be like $10 per deposit per app, and they'll give you $100. They'll give you $200. There's even some in there that match 125% of your first deposit match up to $2,000. You can start off with some crazy number on BetUS. There's all of these underdog, sleeper, prize picks. They're all there in my Discord community. So go and join that free Discord link in the description to that right next to the Pick'ems challenge link. That's where I also announce all of my content as it drops, all of the clothing line stuff that drops that we talked about earlier in the show, and everything NFL Mike. I'm going to try and bring it all to one place. We have 100 people in there right now, so you can be one of the first members, and also those promo codes, they're in there. I also play fantasy football against y'all. I ask for suggestions on content. I feature y'all in the content through that Discord community. It's completely free. Hop in the link in the description. Appreciate you guys for supporting everything. If you've liked the video already, that's awesome. If you subscribe to the channel also, that's awesome. If you guys go and check all that stuff out, I will be very appreciative. Here are my picks for every NFL game of week 2. Picking every single game all year long and challenging all of you to beat me. Watch till the end of the video. I'll tell you how you can send in your picks for a chance to win an NFL jersey of choice. And huge shout out to last week's winner. 22 Smith CL won with a 14-2 record. Destroy me, who went 10-6. So this week, let's go and get our 14-2 weeks, starting with Thursday Night Football. The Buffalo Bills are going to Miami to play the Miami Dolphins in a great one. This rivalry has been amazing over the last couple of years. I have been saying it all offseason that I think that the Bills secondary is suspect. I have to stick to my guns and pick the Dolphins to win the game. I know they started slow last week against Jacksonville, but I think the rust has been knocked off and they're going to go off against the Bills on prime time. The Raiders have to go play the Baltimore Ravens. Oh boy, this is going to be a good one because the Raiders are going to get absolutely killed, just like they did against my Chargers last week. Raiders fans, just save the comments. You guys all look stupid last week. Don't do it again this week. Which brings me to my Chargers, who are going to Carolina to play the Panthers. And the Panthers got smoked by Derek Carr and the Saints. Almost a 50-point loss. This Harbaugh team has a real opportunity here in week 2 to fix anything that went wrong in week 1 and be 2-0. Continuing our kind of light start to the season when we talk about strength of schedule. I'm hoping we see the Chargers backups at some point in this game. Speaking of the Saints, they're going to Dallas to play the Cowboys, and them boys put the hurt on Cleveland. I know Deshaun Watson looks awful. Maybe he should be out of the league at this point because more accusations are coming up. But you got to give the Dallas Cowboys some credit for putting up 33 points in the Browns defense last week. The Buccaneers are going to Detroit, and it's going to be a fun one, because Baker Mayfield is gunslinging the ball all over the field in Tampa again. And we all know what this Lions offense is like. I'm giving the edge to the home team and the team that I just think is a little bit more loaded than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on both sides of the ball right now. I'm hoping Jared Goff's a lot less rusty. The Colts are going on the road to Green Bay, and Indy looked really good last week, even in a loss versus Houston. Green Bay's going to have Malik Willis out there. Jordan Love's out for 4 weeks or so. I can't take the Packers. Jaguars, Browns, 2 0-1 teams, battling for the first win of the season. The Jaguars defense looked way better than it did last year, but unfortunately, Trevor Lawrence struggled mightily. I don't have a lot of faith in the Browns, but I think after Deshaun Watson's performance last week, just run the ball, let your defense get after T-Law, and give your offense some easy points. I know, I'm the buffoon that picked the Jets to win. I was going to the game, rooting for Aaron Rodgers. I feel like I had to, but that was a dumb choice because the 49ers are absolutely loaded. They have the best offensive line in football. They may have the best defense in football. Even without Christian McCaffrey playing, Sam Darnold's in for a rude awakening against his old team. Can the Patriots upset the Seahawks too? I think so, but I'm not betting on it. Jets, I'm rooting for the Jets in case you haven't noticed yet. And as bad as Will Levis was last week, this is not the 49ers. You better come out and make a statement here that the Jets belong in the conversations that they were in all offseason. Because even if you beat the Titans narrowly and it looks ugly, it'll be a win in the win column. But I will already be having my doubts and we're only 2 weeks in. Giants at Commanders should be interesting because these two teams both lost last week too. The Giants may be the worst team in football right now. I'm going to take the rookie Jaden Daniels, who wasn't too bad last week. Obviously, he was a rookie in there, and he looked like a rookie out there, to narrowly beat the Giants. It's not going to be comfortable. And then Bo Nix, oh boy. He did look okay last week. I'm not saying Broncos fans that it wasn't good, but the Broncos are 0-1, and then after seeing what TJ Watt did to the Falcons, just pray for Bo. There's no tackle that can stand in front of TJ Watt and slow him down. Which brings me to Mike's Game of the Week. Each week, I pick the most interesting non-primetime game to highlight, the one I want you to watch. Even if you're a fan of another team, the Bengals and the Chiefs game has so many storylines that you cannot ignore it. The Bengals were upset by the Patriots last week. This team already could be reeling and facing 0-2 against the defending AFC champions and Super Bowl champions. We know the history between these two teams, especially over the last couple of years. We know about Joe Burrow's wrist. A lot of clips coming out of him looking like that wrist was bothering him during the game last week. T. Higgins probably is going to be available for this game. Jamar Chase did not look like Jamar Chase without practicing all offseason. I have to go with the Chiefs, but it is very interesting to see if the Bengals play up to the Chiefs like they have in the past. I'll tell you my game of the week, upset of the week, picks for Sunday and Monday Night Football. But first, make sure that you remember to go join my Mike's Pick'ems challenge after the video. It's free to join, and you have your shot at winning an NFL jersey of choice. The link is posted up on the NFL Mike page on all platforms. For this week only, once you go and submit your picks, come back to the video and comment hashtag Mike's Pick'ems challenge. I'll be following every single one of you back. And my upset of this week may surprise you because I'm very high on the Rams this year, but they're already beat to crap. They're down both their tackles. Puka Nacua is injured, and they're in a situation where Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp have to try and carry this offense. I think the Rams are going to try and get Kyron Williams going on this Cardinals defense. It kind of stinks, but I'm rocking with the Cardinals for the upset of the week for the second week in a row. Just a team that I think can win some shootouts. They probably should have scored 40 if they don't make a few mistakes there that you make in week one. Taking the Cardinals to narrowly upset the Rams is my upset of the week. I got to pick one each week. Finally, we've been waiting all day for a Sunday night. Caleb Williams versus CJ Stroud. This is going to be fun. He looked trigger happy out there. Very inaccurate last week. I feel like the Bears should have went off on that Titans defense. Receivers were getting tons of separation. Williams just missed a few throws. I am a little bit worried. Keenan Allen's banged up. Rome Odunze isn't going to be available for this game. But I think Caleb Williams will look a lot better in another loss to the Houston Texans. They're just too good a team. They were able to get it going in whatever facet they needed during that game at the points in that game that they needed it most. That Indy team is no joke. They balled out too. Monday Night Football, the Atlanta Falcons coming off that loss to Pittsburgh are going to Philly to play the Eagles. Because TJ Watt doesn't play for the Eagles, so the Falcons offense hopefully can start to use some of these weapons. He literally wrecked the entire game. And Saquon Barkley and this Eagles rushing attack was actually unstoppable against a pretty solid Packers front seven. I'm going with Philly at home. It would suck for the Falcons to go 0-2 though in their first two games with Kirk Cousins. That's my picks for this week. Comment what you think my record will be. That's going to do it for the first episode of NFL Mike's Corner. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We will be back next week with even more. This is just a draft. We are trying to come up with more ideas. You guys know how creative I am. I am a lunatic. And now that I've committed to this weekly, I am excited to see what I can bring to the podcasting scene. One day at a time, one step at a time, one episode at a time. Please comment if you're still listening to this. Just comment Team Mike, I'll respond. I'll say what's up. I'll send you a DM or I'll send you a message and respond to make sure that I show appreciation for those that listen to NFL Mike talk for freaking 2 hours on a random Wednesday about football. But it's what I love to do, and it's what I'm going to be doing until they lower me in the grave. What's going to happen this week in the NFL? We don't know. And what's going to happen this season here on this show? How far is this going to go? I guess sooner rather than later, y'all. The ball definitely won't lie.
Bill Flames, I went Mike on the mic. With something brand new, one time for your mind. He gave you fair warning. Now it's time to smack him in the mouth with that raw sports talk from the town. Sweet chin music to your favorite sportscaster.